Did you know it's possible to work 1,000% and still be going in the wrong direction? It's possible for a whole team of people to be working 1,000% and still something feels wrong. It's called mission drift, and we're going to share how you can detect signs of mission drift in your ministry or organization, and then what can you do to protect your team, your leaders, your future from mission drift. So let's start with the bottom line this time. You have to remember your commissioning moment. What do I mean? Well, as a person of faith, I look to the Bible for the example, not just for good ideas and life, but even for leadership as well. And we see a case study from the Apostle Paul. He's actually on trial for his life. He's defending himself, which I think is pretty cool. And he wants to share as proof text for his mission, his meaning, why he got here, what's happened to him, why things have been happening against him. And he's sharing his commissioning moment with Christ. He literally is at the end of his life talking about the beginning of his missionary work. And it's a staggering case study for leaders who want to take longevity and sustainability seriously. Because what it says is, you are accountable to your commissioning moment. And there is something unique that's being implied in Paul's case study. He's saying, hey, all these good things happened and all these terrible things happened against me. But neither the good things that I got to accomplish or the crazy things that happened against me really justify that I was on mission. And so many times we can look for external metrics. You can actually be doing a lot and not hitting the mark for you personally. In addition, you can say, look at all these terrible things, all this rough stuff that's been coming against us. We probably missed it somewhere. No, actually, compound difficulty and adversity is part of the job. And so you can't look at that and say, clearly something is wrong just because it's been tough. No, that's not true either. So the only way we can really make sense of the sustainability and the accuracy of our mission is not by external factors, but really with that internal compass, that we have a clear sense of direction and that we're following through with a cohesive, coherent sense of conviction. It's very, very dangerous. I'm serious, guys. You can be thinking that you're the leader, that you're in charge at large, you're making it happen, and then you look back in hindsight and you see this horrible trajectory. You say, what happened? What went wrong? A lot of times people started going off the rails during times of success, surplus, abundance, when they were getting all the pats on the back, when they were writing all their books, they were teaching other people how to do things their way at the conferences. That was actually one of the negative inflection points where they were missing out on the dangerous signs of mission drift that were actually creeping in. And mission drift can take on many forms. For example, it could show up in the form of scope creep, or it could show up in the form of rebranding incorrectly. And if you're not a student of your organization's history, then you could be misinterpreting the moment that you're leading in because you've taken it out of context from the commissioning moment. It doesn't mean that everybody has to relive the past. It means that each leader needs to have their own on-ramp, that the commissioning moment becomes personal to them. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But, in reality, leaders have a lot of latitude. Like, if you're the leader in the chair, you have a lot of freedom to champion change, innovation, to direct the course of how things go. But what you cannot do if you are in the leadership chair is forget the strategic context that you are meant to work in. And the moment you do, you begin to drift away from the very why of your organization. So mission drift is not just I'm not feeling motivated, for a few weeks. Mission drift is not just we're kind of having a slump in revenue. Mission drift is the real conviction that leaders share with their teams that they are going to stick it out because there is a mission that matters. Mission drift is dangerous because it really can happen at any level of the organization. The executive or point leaders can start getting off track. The mid-level leaders can start adding on too much work. The emerging leaders, future leaders that are joining on, they can lose sight of the history, the story that's being written. So it is possible that mission drift can happen at any point in the org chart, but also it could be happening at multiple points of the org chart. And that's why it gets so messy, because you're wondering where the alignment is off, and it might be off at multiple points. So it's really important that we can have these honest conversations, bring in optimistic urgency that there is a mission that matters, that the team needs to be given 1,000% for the right reasons, and then they feel the momentum of everybody coming together. So I'm going to share 3 strategies that you can use to detect signs of mission drift, but also how are you going to protect your work as a leader, your teamwork with other leaders, and then hopefully the network that you are going to be shaping in the future. So the first one is watch your language. We got to get really clear, what is the mission? Like, what are we really talking about? And what we talk about in meetings and all around is shaping our perception of what we're doing here. And so I want to share a simple 2-part template that you need to be using as a filter to make sure that everyone is on the same page. It goes simply like this. Our mission is, fill in the blank, and our mission is not. Now, if you want to start a hearty debate on your team, just go at it in those 2 rounds. But hopefully it'll be constructive and encouraging. The point is that you need to be listening to each other, and you need to make sure that you are using your communication, using your decision making, using the roles that you are entrusted with to actually clarify and not clutter. The second thing you can be doing is believe in your team. Believe in the team of leaders that you have. And so many leaders struggle to trust others on the team. They don't know how to delegate. They don't know how to trust. They don't know how to release. Why is that? It's because they don't think that the other people on the team have the same connection with the commissioning moment. What I found is that if you can begin to investigate what is the connection that the different leaders on the team have with the organization, you will figure it out pretty quick. And then you don't have to use mistrust as a defense or a coping mechanism, because really that frustrates and discourages people more than anything. When you say we're a team, but you're withholding some kind of trust, it'd be better to just be honest and say, hey, I don't think we're on the same page. Having hard but needed conversations will actually bring health to the organization, and hopefully it will take the pressure off of the working results, and then it'll deepen the vulnerability and the honesty in the real relationships that are still intact. Every leader in the team is going to have a different story of their on-ramp into the work, their on-ramp into, the team, but they all need to have a similar theme. And what you're listening for becomes the filter. And it's simply this: when did the commissioning moment for the whole organization become personal to each leader. If they don't have a moment, a time, a story where that commissioning moment that started this whole thing, started the company, started the ministry, started the movement, if they don't have their own personal take on the commissioning moment, there may not be as much alignment as you are hoping for. And that's not a total negative. It just means that's where you got to go to work. The reason I use this is not to arm hurting, suspicious leaders with something to disqualify their team with, but actually something that reassures them with tangible proof that all the people on their team are there for the same reason. All the leaders in that organization have a personal connection and a deep, growing sense of conviction to now guard and champion the commissioning moment for that organization. And so now you're not fighting against each other in terms of which way to go, what to work on, where to allocate resources, who to hire, who to fire. You're now on the same team and you're moving in the same direction because you are very, very confident that everyone shares the same commissioning moment, even if it's not, like we said, the same story. They all had an on-ramp where they said, I'm going to take ownership of this moment. All right. So number three, align and launch. Before you launch people out, which is the hope, right? You want to go from your work to teamwork to network. But before you can actually get there, you have to align and then you launch, and then you align and then you launch again, and you align and you launch again. A lot of times we think, it's this way or the highway, and then we launch people out, and then we don't have long-lasting, sustainable relationships, and we wonder why we can't go to the next level. It's because relationship and partnership gets us to the next level over and over again without fail. So leaders should not be penalized for having vision. It's okay to have unique sense of vision, a clear sense of direction, to even sound different and think differently about a certain matter. And if you're in a organizational culture that is empowering, that is encouraging, it should be a byproduct of that organizational culture. Man, they're getting empowered, they're getting built up, they're getting equipped, they're thinking faster, they're working smarter, they're solving more problems. This is exciting for the overall picture of what's possible when people pull together. But if you are, for lack of a better phrase, if you're just narrowly looking at who's showing up in the building to help you do daily tasks, then you may not see the potential of empowering and encouraging that leadership drive as it starts to show up in other people. There's always room for improvement. There's always room for innovation in the organization, be it nonprofit, for-profit. But what there isn't room for is division, right? Division, where there's two visions now somehow fighting for attention, fighting for approvals, agreement, fighting for resources, fighting for team members to, kind of help and serve and weigh in. And so one of the big things that we use to filter is we're listening for vision. When we hear vision, we don't discount it, we don't disqualify it, but we know how important it is to align and then launch. We want not just one or the other, we actually want both or multiple visions, so to speak, to be successful. We want whatever is happening right under the roof to continue to expand further out of our reach, out of our range, into new spheres of influence. But in order to do that, we have to learn how to align and then launch. if a leader's talking differently, they're thinking about things differently, they got a new drive in their heart, you got to be honest about it. You have to say, hey, we celebrate that this is really happening, but it's different than the commissioning moment we have here. You might be getting a new commissioning moment. You might be getting launched. You might be getting sent. You might be starting a new company. You might be starting a new ministry. And so what we want to do now is take the journey from my work to teamwork to network and try to steward that long journey, which is, easier said than done, but it is valuable. It's worth it to have good, healthy relationships all along the way, so that as learners become leaders and leaders get launched and all this kind of change and growth is happening, that there's still some sort of relational network that is keeping people on mission in a bigger context. So I hope that makes sense. Let me finish with the notes just to make sure I got it all. Don't entertain mission drift in the name of growing your own footprint, right? What happens is scope creep, and then our definition for the work doesn't make sense anymore, so we rebrand, and we rebrand incorrectly, and then that doesn't work, so what will work? We're going to keep doing that and this other thing and that other thing, right? And scope creep is the first step, and then rebranding incorrectly is the next step. And instead, I would urge you to insist at the leadership level on reflection, so that way you can clarify the direction. Clarify the direction. Don't clutter the direction. All right. And in order to do that, right, leaders in particular need to be willing to have hard but necessary conversations. Hey, it looks like you have new vision. We've got to get behind it. We know what we're here to do on this team. We're not going to penalize you for having a different vision, but we have got to be focused on the why, the work, the way that we're here for. And I'm not talking about, the doctrines. I'm not talking about spiritual stuff right now. I'm just talking about organizational clarity for the team, because if there is division, even in the name of good vision, division, 2 visions, 3 visions, 10 visions, whatever you want to say, can be really hard. And I know that there are big organizations that have a lot of branches, right? They have roots and branches and they all go in different directions. How do they make that work? A lot of it comes down to the way they've organized things. Just simply looking at the org chart, looking at the funding models, looking at the governance behind it. But another piece, which I think needs to be underscored, is the culture of the leadership community itself. Is it healthy? Is it rooted in relationships? Does it value partnership? Is there a bigger why that can keep rallying people? And is for lack of a better phrase, is the center of gravity, outside of us, that's always calling us higher, always calling us to grow, to go, or is the center of gravity, within the huddle of the tenure? So I hope this is helpful. I hope you hear the heart behind it. And I think we need both. Leaders for the home front, leaders for the front lines, leaders for new fields. We need more leaders, period. We need to be developing leaders with strong relationships, but also high capacity results. It's not a myth. It is part of the mission. Okay, so I encourage you, if this conversation resonates with you, go to peterbirchfield.com, my website. You'll find free trainings for yourself and your team, and you will find out information how to join my leadership community This thing keeps getting better and better. I won't talk about it now. You can get all the information at peterbirchfield.com. Join now because spaces are limited. Remember, the future has so many new fields waiting for you, so prepare to go there.